this is me, and that's what I do. I'm based at C40I, Center for Digital Innovation. Center for Digital Innovation, that's right. Center for Digital Innovation, and that's based in Kingston upon Hull. You can probably tell that through my accent. You can probably tell, yeah, he's from Hull. And that's the building. That's my LinkedIn profile, John Robert Spence. Everybody calls me Bob. I was christened John Bob, which when I was much younger wasn't such a bad thing. But being called John Bob now, it doesn't quite have the same ring. So John Robert Spence, you're more than welcome to link with me on LinkedIn. And I publish a lot of information around business development models. And you can see from my job title there that I'm responsible for business development around innovation. That's right, business development around innovation. I also happen to teach, coach, lecture on the subject. And I'm also actively involved in making sales right now. Outside of that, I sell business development technology to lawyers. So I'm going to be drawing on some of my experiences, and I'm going to be sharing some models with you and some ideas with you and some questions with you, because right now there's never been a bigger opportunity to sell innovation. Never, ever has there been a bigger opportunity to sell innovation. I think nearly everybody recognizes that we've just gone through a change. The restrictions are starting to ease a little bit, but we're going into something called a new normal. I'm absolutely sure that everyone on this call have heard of the new normal, probably to an extent that you're bored of hearing about this new normal, but it's as good a phrase as any. And technically, it does mean that there's a lot more open-mindedness around new and emerging technologies. Now, yeah, just to show you where this information comes from, England has got 432 people per square mile, so that's good to know. This is where I'm from. So to the fellow South Africans on this conference, I say, hoe gaan dit met jou? How is it with you? But I'm speculating I'm the only one. I was also based in Hong Kong in my youth, representing an Australian company. So to all the Australians on the call, good day. And the point of sharing that information with you is that both Australia and South Africa have had distance economies for some time prior to the coronavirus outbreak. And what I mean by that is, in terms of business development, a lot of it has had to be done at a distance anyway. So I'm going to be sharing some things with you that have come from the Southern Hemisphere that I have found have worked very well in the United Kingdom economy. Whoa. So let's see what that means. Let's see what that means. So we start off with new and emerging technology, and how does this have an impact on the way you sell? Well, I think you should start off with, how does this have an impact on the way people buy? Because right now, we've got a number of moving parts to consider. So whatever it is that you're doing, so it could be you're an entrepreneur, so you're working outside businesses and you're showing people new and emerging technology in a new and emerging new economy. Or it could be you're an intrapreneur. Yes. You are looking for, well, how do I sell internally new and emerging technologies to this new and emerging economy? How do I do it? Because everyone's talking about this. And I think it's fair to say that most people who have to make a decision, or the decision, or are part of the influence structure, which new and emerging technology we should invest in, it's one big worry. It's one big worry. So I think we start off with not how to sell, which I'm going to cover, but how are people going to buy? And that is pretty much the method of how somebody spends money business to business. They work out the requirement. This is what we require. Then they decide their selection criteria. So if we're going to buy, how are we going to select what it is that we're going to buy? And then they invite some people from within that selection to make a presentation. Then they reflect on that presentation. And then they start to negotiate with that vendor. And then the vendor has to onboard the client into this new and emerging technology. And then you need to think about, well, how can we keep customers that have embraced this new and emerging technology? How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? So let me share with you, in my experience over the last 12 months, my experience has been that each one of these is now different. And the buying cycle, it's not the same. So if you're expecting your pre-COVID sales model to post-COVID do the goods, I would rethink it. I would give it some extra thought, because one of the challenges of selling new and emerging technology is people aren't 100% sure, not 100% sure of what their requirement should be right now. It's difficult, isn't it? Because nobody can quite be sure how this year's going to go, let alone next year and the year after that. It's reasonable to say that we think it's going to change. I think that's a reasonable thing. It's going to change, but we don't know what it's going to change to. So I'm going to show you some ideas around how to help someone understand how new and emerging technology could fit into a requirement format. Then you start thinking, well, how are people going to choose? How are they going to choose a vendor? How are they going to choose a supplier? How are they going to choose a product? How are they going to choose a partner? How are people going to choose right now? Because the selection process has definitely been altered. It's been slightly bent, a little bit out of shape as a consequence of the last 12, 13 months. So you need to start thinking, well, okay, how are people likely to choose in this new environment? How are they likely to do it? And I'm going to show you some ideas around that. Don't worry. I'm not going to talk you through the problem and then we'll end the meeting. I'm going to go through the problem and then say, look, this is some of the ways you can work out what to do. And then you start thinking about, well, okay, how do people decide? How do people reflect? So once people have got this requirement, this kind of scope, then they've got like a selection measurement process. How are people going to say, okay, that's the one we're going to go through? I mean, what's the reflection process? One thing I'm discovering, which may or may not be useful to know, is that historically, price has played a part. It has played a part in new and emerging technology because it's kind of quite hard to present a return on investment case on something that's new and emerging. You can't say, well, here's a business case for someone that embraced this 5 years ago, and this is the business case for doing it because this is the case study. Because when you're doing business development with new and emerging technology, you don't have that 5-year footprint of case study. You just don't. So it's kind of harder to make that financial return on investment case because it's based on speculation rather than implementation. So the pricing structure, that's something else to consider. You know, if you spend $100, we'll save you 101 or whatever it is, or you invest $100 and you make 101 or whatever it is that you're doing. That kind of process definitely has been bent out of shape over the last 13 months. In fact, I would even suggest that something quite recent, and when I say recent, I mean 2 months ago. I mean, that's quite recent, 2 months. I was saying to a client that the entire way you've been selling your innovation which is based on case studies, we're going to have to find a new way of doing it, because those pre-COVID case studies that you have, they're going to be quite easy to criticize right now. It's going to be quite easy to ask some very spiky questions around a technology that performed exceptionally well in 2018, because it doesn't necessarily mean that that benefit case stacks up. So the reflection part of it, we need to grasp that like a nettle. And the way people negotiate is different now. The way people negotiate. Certainly the terms and conditions people are looking for are very different. So they're going to be a lot more different for new and emerging technologies. I mean, to an extent, people can buy in the same way as they did before because they're comfortable in buying in the same way as they did before. But it's unlikely that status quo will remain, because if you're spending the company's money, you're going to have to put the internal business case to why you've done something. And it just needs one person to say to that buyer, and what was your procurement strategy for this new technology? And you say, well, that's just how we always buy. That's not going to stack up so much, is it now? No. Also, questions around onboarding. I had a sales meeting 3 weeks ago, and probably 70% of the meeting was about our onboarding. How do you intend to onboard us into this technology when it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to come in and out of our business the way you did before? But by the way, that was a sale in Germany. I sold some technology into a German company. So onboarding. So these are some of the things that people are going to have going through their mind, regardless of the arguments for your technology. Regardless. Oh boy, we got some stuff to cover here. Now, historically, yeah, you kind of go in with new and emerging technology, and it's pretty much, well, this is who we are. This is our credentials, this technology. And I'll give you an example. We've got some business development technology for the legal sector. So we say, okay, this is what it does. The credentials are, it's backed by these people. It's backed by those people. It's used by these people. It's won these awards. And then you go straight into the need. And that's a big challenge for new and emerging technology, because they might not even know what they don't know. But I'm going to show you how to get over that. They might not even know what they don't know, which then means it's very hard to talk about a solution based on something that they didn't know that they needed. And then you start selling the rest of the stuff, and the whole thing kind of starts to disintegrate. So that, if you like, linear conversation about making a sale, it turns to dust very quickly. And even when I've talked about this before, how a sales process looks through a webcam. So how a sales process looks through a webcam, it's even worse when it's new and emerging technologies. So if you look at this, if it's the first time that you've seen this, you can see the sort of axis. One, you've got the timeline, you've got the journey of the narrative. Then you've got, is it being received positively or is it being received negatively? Uh-oh. So you've got those two axes. If you look at the left, if it goes up, that means what you're saying is being received positively. And if it goes down, car crash, it's not being received well. So for new and emerging technology, it kind of goes like that, only probably a bit worse, to be honest, because you can introduce yourself, and that's always uplifting because it's brand new information. But the credentials of new technology and emerging technology, no matter how enthused that you are about it, people generally see it through their own lens, which tends to be the risk rather than the benefit. And if you're a founder, and I'm a founder as well, you've even got that extra burden to carry, that you've got so much of yourself embedded into the idea that you're really going to want to talk about the credentials. You feel obliged to because you've got so much skin in it. And a lot of the time that just doesn't make a deal of anything. If you pull it back up by talking about, well, this is the need this idea meets, you can attract people's attention. But quite often, the explanation of new and emerging technology, I'll give you an example of this, and I'm judging by the names, there's no way, Sadia, I'm going to offend anybody. I know you're now crossing your fingers at the other end, Sadia. She's thinking, what's he going to say? I was a judge 3 weeks ago at a major tech conference in Central Europe. Yeah, major tech conference. And I was a judge in this competition that was about new and emerging technology. And we were judging which was the one. It wasn't just the one, that we were going to pick 5 that we thought were the shining stars of the post-coronavirus era in Central Europe. The explanation of the problem that the technologies were solving wasn't poor, it was dire. It was dire. It assumed that every judge had such a solid grasp of the technology, and it really was a struggle out of the 43 entrants to pick out 5. Now, I'm sure that all 43 of them were worthy of something, but in terms of that explanation of how what is the solution you represent, dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And we're going to need to think about that, and I'll show you how to think about it. You can see how this goes along. It goes up and down, and usually if you're using a linear sales model to discuss something new, it just doesn't perform much better than medium. And then what you've got is this peak end concept that I'm always talking about. The only thing people will remember is the peak and the end. So the peak, it can be something great or it can be something terrible. So you can't even decide if it's up or down, but they'll remember the peak. And the last bit. So if you're used to going into a boardroom and making a great first impression, which is great, you're going to need to make a first impression. That's not how people remember it. Not for this. No. They'll remember what they didn't understand, or they'll remember the things that really worry them. That's what people remember. They'll definitely remember the pricing structure. You can rely on that. The likelihood of being able to recall a rather complex benefit case, not so likely. And if at the end, you've decided to have a Q&A session at the end of your sales presentation for something that's new and emerging, my only advice is don't do it. And I'll tell you why. So let's just say you've got a really cool presentation and explanation around something that's new, valid, and it's emerging. And you've really connected with everybody there, which is cool. If at the end of it you say, let's run a 5-minute Q&A session, you've got no idea what you're about to be asked. Now, I'll give you an example of this. It doesn't affect anyone on this call unless they're based in Romania, and I'm guessing they're not. I recently presented something on behalf of a Romanian company that was around an algorithm. That's right. That's right. Machine learning, a machine learning concept. Quite cool. Let's see how it goes. I said to my partner on the call, when we finish the presentation, we close off and then we book a one-to-one with the lead and we collate questions through the lead. We do not do it through an open forum through webcam. We do not. Do not do that by pain of death. And I did say pain of death. Obviously, pain of death means something else in Romania, I guess. But it went so well that he couldn't help himself. He could not resist to say, that's great. If there's any other questions before we go. And there was. And this question was a very technical question around the algorithm that was producing the results. Now, the challenge with that is that neither of us on the call had developed the algorithm. Now, I know a little bit about algorithms. I know enough to know I don't know enough about it. So I would not have engaged with that question. It's not the time to do a bluffer's guide on algorithms. My colleague, who's a great guy, he did, and he was taken apart at the end of the call because the person that he was speaking with understood a lot more about machine learning than he did. And you can imagine the negativity at the end of the call that caused, and it was completely avoidable. It was avoidable. It's avoidable. So just in my experience, present something, but do not open up a Q&A, just a random Q&A at the end. Make sure the questions are being collated by one person, or if it is a one-on-one call, you could say, at this point, may I collect all the questions that you have and respond in detail via email? Is it okay if we work like that? Because this effect, it's disastrous if you're trying to sell, and it's rocket fuel. An unmanaged Q&A session at the end of a presentation about new technology is rocket fuel to the critic and the cynic. It's great. So don't put yourself in that space. So you've still got this kind of sales model of what's their need, the solution, how do we fit, and where's the value. Again, the challenge with all of the old sales models is my experience with C40I, they don't really engage with the problem of doing a sale. So if you're used to using ideas like this, you can see the value structure at the end probably won't work because the return on investment is kind of unclear. It may even be disrupted by the pandemic. Even the future vision, which is so powerful in a presentation, even that's disrupted because no one can be sure, well, what does the future vision look like when we're in this situation? So what do we do? And these are the 12, allegedly, these are the 12 most recognized and popular sales models. So I'm hoping that you know some of these. And they're good. I mean, you look at the slides and you put any of those in the browser, there's books, training programs, white papers, all around this stuff. The thing is, not one of these was designed to sell new and emerging technology. Not one of them was designed specifically to do that. So, I mean, I don't want to, be sued by the Sandler Corporation. I'm sure they'll tell you that, this will help you do that. And it will help you do it, but it's not designed for it. It's not designed for it. None of these systems are actually designed to sell new and emerging technologies. That's not what they were designed to do. Every one of them will help you, but be aware that they're not designed to do that. So unfortunately, you're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself. Yes. So let's start to work our way through some of these challenges of selling new stuff. Let's call it new stuff. I'm sure you're sick of hearing me go new and emerging technologies, new stuff. Okay. Well, it's this, which you might think, well, what kind of language are you talking about? And I'm referring to something called the De Bono hats. And De Bono is not, I'm not referring to the guitarist in U2. Edward de Bono I'm talking about. And he came up with this concept. Now, I would use this as a tool for preparing your sales method, because I don't think you can go into bat with a bog standard sales framework. I think you have to go into the meeting thinking about, well, okay, what type of thinking is in the room, rather than what type of benefits are people going to buy. That's where I would start with. What type of thinking? It could be the person. How does this person think? Or if it's multiple people, what type of thinking will be on this call? Because I think if you start from what type of thinking is on the call, it will alter the way you intend to present your innovation. Okay, your new stuff. It will alter it. And it's quite straightforward what these represent. You got the white hat. So it could be you're on a call with someone that just wants the facts. That's fair enough. It could be you're on a call with someone that their gut instinct is something that they rely on. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you've got your benefit case person. So a benefit case person, the existing sales models are more likely to work with them, but not 100%. Then you've got the black hat. You've got people that respond in two ways. You say to some people, this is brand new. And some people, when you say it's brand new, they go red hat, they feel excited, and yellow hat, I wonder what the benefit case is. But you've got other people who say this is brand new, and they go immediately to black hat, which is act cautious. Then the default position is, okay, what's the facts behind this new stuff? So people can change their hat as this goes along. Then you've got people that are very creative, and then you've got people that are process driven. So if you think that I'm selling technology, innovative technology to the legal profession, I'm pretty sure that every time I'm on a call, I'm talking to someone that starts off with black hat. They then move to white hat. They then move to yellow hat, and then to blue. It works like that. So that my sales process maps out onto those hats. Now, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to go black, white, yellow, blue. But I've found over the years that using the De Bono hat structure to think about how am I going to do this, the benefit case is immeasurable. Where I got this from, because De Bono was not a sales guy. So if you're hoping to find a sales book by Edward De Bono, you're going to be looking for some time. He's not a sales guy. A pal of mine, yes, I've got a friend, he was selling complex and sophisticated financial service products in California. Very sophisticated products for the sophisticated investor. So I was saying, well, how do you prepare for a meeting, or what is it you do? I said, have you got like a straightforward? He says, no, I scrap anything I've got. I scrap. I do the research to try to understand which of these hats they will most likely have when I meet them, because that's how I have to engage. Because if we go back, if you know which hat they're wearing, you can then start to understand the language that you need to work with. It's the thinking style. It's the thinking style of the person, not the benefit case they will reach out to. It's the thinking style. And this is how it looks. I mean, these are very, very broad summaries. Now, before I go any further, you might say, well, okay, well, how are you going to know what kind of hat they're going to wear? Well, there's different ways you can do it. I've always found LinkedIn gives you a snapshot of what somebody might be by their job description, by their education, by their role in the company. That gives you an idea where they might be coming from. The website of the company, the company's values, the mission statement. I'm not saying that that's 100%, but the idea that you can reach out to someone and you're absolutely clueless which hat they might be, that's not so. And I think you can be fairly safe by using this measurement system. So you got people that are big picture, a big picture person, probably management. They want to consider everything. But you need to find out their important priorities. So that's a blue hat. The white, which we know, facts and information. So you really engage with information. You give them facts. Then you've got people. I always think these are like futurists. There are some people that are genuinely enthused by new stuff, and hey, I'm one of them. If someone says to me, "This is brand new," I'm more inclined to say, "Tell me about it," than if someone said, "Hey, this has been in the market 10 years. It's absolutely proven." Yeah, okay. But something brand new that no one else has got. Okay, how did you design it? Who's the team? Who are the founders? How are you bringing it to market? What's the benefit case? What makes you think it's going to go anywhere? How could this help me? If it's new, I want new stuff. But I know that not everyone is a red hat. So I'm a red hat person. Yeah. I don't know about ego, but yeah, if you started talking to me about the future of this and the future of that and where you're going and how that would help me, I'll buy into that. The black hat needn't be how someone is. It's how they might respond to something that's brand new. So I know that my business partner is 100% a black hat, able to find the bad news at 10 paces, able, well, you know the story. I always think the glass is half full. He thinks it's half empty. Some people are wired like that. And when you're in business, it's pretty cool that one of you's one and one's the other. So how they work with things is, what's the plus of doing this? What's the minus of doing this? And what's interesting about this? Then they evaluate it. Bog standard PMI. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? What could be interesting for our company? And what's the evaluation? The yellow does exactly the same. And then the green, new ideas. New ideas. So it looks like this. I'll let you have a little look at that. Now that's my synopsis of it. I'm not saying that that's exactly how it works, because I'm not that clever. But it kind of looks like that. So if it's a brand new idea, it looks like that. You start off with a blue hat, then white, green, and blue. Choosing between alternative solutions, it could look like that. But I've found that if you're going to get the slides. You're going to get the slides. So it's not like you have to work it all out now. But if you took that and that and that, at least it means that whatever sales model that you've got, you're trying to position the way you're communicating your benefit case into the way that they're thinking. Because how they think is how they worry. And the way people make a decision about something brand new is to worry it through. That's how people do. So let's keep moving, Sadia. And just so you know, Sadia, I am keeping an eye on the clock. Look at that. Lordy, lordy, 38 minutes. Good grief. Doesn't time fly? So yeah, it's all pretty basic thinking. The language of the people you're selling to. I mean, you're selling the idea to. Who are you selling the idea to? What is it they want? What is it that they want? I've been in another sales meeting, about 2 months ago, where we were talking to the managing partner of a very, very large and successful practice. And she wasn't interested in the details. It was the big picture. It was the big picture. If we went ahead with this, with 16 licenses, where do we get to in 12 months? So she essentially wanted 5 bullet points, what 12 months would look like from now. Turnover, work in progress, margin, that kind of thing. She's not interested in how we're going to onboard them and how we report to her every quarter. If she wanted that, she would have asked. And that's why I think that in terms of business development, you've really got to start speaking the language. No, you've got to address the thinking. That's better. You need to address the thinking. You need to address the thinking style of the people that you're communicating your great new idea to. You need to reach out to their thinking style. I'd do that rather than try and work out, well, what kind of benefit case are they going to buy into? You've really got to tune yourself into how they're seeing things. You can do it. I mean, using the De Bono hat, you could probably think it through in half an hour, because we've got that model, and the De Bono model is quite an interesting one to follow. It's pretty easy to follow. And then you've got these things here. Well, each one of those will have an impact on business development for new ideas. And I would be reflecting, how does each of these business development skills, how do they need to be changed for something that's brand new? How do they need to be changed? Like, for example, the telephone technique for something that's brand new. I would not be using the telephone to have conversations around questions, for example. Because if you're going to explain something that's brand new, you need to have the whole picture. You need to see the body language, the face, the whole thing. You know, it's a real risk to explain something through a telephone. Use of the written word, I think you've got to rethink how you're going to do that. Because don't assume that lengthy emails explaining stuff get read. Don't assume that. In fact, there's a whole load of research that shows that one of the consequences of this coronavirus pandemic is that emails have got longer. Okay, emails have got longer. Okay, but people are less attentive. So what you've got is this double whammy of people are trying to share more and more information via email because they can't meet, and people are less attentive. I mean, can you imagine how that impacts on a new and emerging technology when you need people's full attention? Lordy, lordy, it's not going to help, is it? So I would cut back on the use of the written word on something that's new and emerging. I absolutely would. I just think it's a risk, you know? I just think it's a risk. The power is in one-to-one, face-to-face meetings. I really think that that's the way to do this. I really think that most of this has to be done in one-to-one, face-to-face meetings, whether it's Zoom or if you get the chance to meet now. Most of the load for something brand new has to be done face-to-face, one-to-one, whether through a webcam or whether in person. Group meetings for new and emerging technologies are a minefield, because you cannot be sure of where everybody is in terms of their grasp of what you're talking about. So I think each of these things, which are the toolkit of the business development professional, you need to rethink them within the context of what you're doing. And hello, I think I've got some chat here. Sorry about this. Let me just have a look. We'll have a little bit of chat. All right, Gary. All right, man. Well, you'll get the recording, and I appreciate you you dropping that text in there, Gary. Have a great afternoon. Okay, so let's have a look, man. Yeah, now, in terms of how you communicate new and emerging technologies, what I've discovered is try and work with somebody who's able to produce visual content it could be images, it could be digital assets. The way that you present information when it's new and emerging, it's got to be much more precise. Don't use text, don't use bullet points. It needs a different style. When we're presenting our technology, we discovered that the less text we use, the more people understood. So it's not my area of expertise, but I do know that I'm going to be discussing a fantastic program later at the end of this, which Sadia collates and curates. And it's really worthwhile understanding digital messages. So think in terms of slides with the arguments mapped out in images and digital assets rather than arguments mapped out by words. Okay. And you definitely need a measurement system to understand what people understand. So I would be thinking about what is the minimum comprehension level that someone needs to engage with what you're doing, and try not to go beyond that. There is always a tendency to show somebody how fantastic and brand new something is, but that won't help you. Now, here's another model. Look at that little drum roll, Sadia. I like to do drum rolls. This, so we've got the De Bono hat. So we know to look at De Bono to think, okay, how are people thinking? Now, this is about value structures, okay? And we've used it in different areas. You can see there's like 6 components of this. You can see that. Now, these components will play into new information. So if you think about it, we're actually selling new information. It just happens that new information could be a product, it could be an offer, it could be a concept, and that's what we call a concept selling model. So let's have a little look at this. Let's have a little look at this. Yeah, because that's where we need to get to. That's where we need to get to. Now, I've already touched on visuals. I think that you need to think about, rather than a linear sales process, try and explain your technology as a story. Try and explain it as a story. I can't tell you, because I don't know what it is you're selling, exactly what that story should be. But I do know that you should be in the story, they should be in the story, their business should be in the story, and your idea should be in this story. So you've got 4 characters in this story. As I've said, you need to back it up with visuals, and then either with examples of anecdotes of how it works, not what it does, but how it works, and try to involve them. I'm going to demo this at the end of this, Sadia. Yeah. Now, this is essentially a negotiation model. Essentially, that's what it is. But you need to look at how to apply this model to selling new ideas. And I'll show you how it works. Thank you. That's Princess Chunga. When you are selling new and emerging technology, that's what you're going to have to do. It's rare that if it's business to business, it'll be one-on-one. It's rare. It's possible. It's rare. So this model, it's designed to communicate ideas, and it looks like this. Yeah, that's what it does. So let's go through it. Sadia, I just fancied putting some like sound effects in. I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the, was with me. Okay, now, did you see that? Let's go straight back to it. Can you see at the bottom? It refers to currency. Currency. Look at that a lot across the bottom. Currency. Now, what do I mean by currency? Well, I'm sat here in the United Kingdom. So if I was to go out and take currency out, I would take out pounds and pence, because pounds and pence work in the UK. Pounds and pence, if I take pounds and pence into Asda, the person responsible for the till can make sense of pounds and pence. So if I was to buy some sparkling water, I can hand that sparkling water and hand over some pounds and pence, and everybody knows what's going on. We're all using the same currency. If I was back in Poland, and I'm looking forward to getting back to Poland, and I went into a shop in Poland to buy some sparkling water with pounds and pence, it's the wrong currency. It's the wrong currency because they lose the zloty. And the point of this is to explain that when you're selling innovation, when you're selling something that's brand new, when you're selling something that's emerging, that's not common, you have to make sure you're using the right currency. So if you look across the bottom, let's start off with the right goal currency. Have you understood the goals they've got? So let's say you were talking to me and you were saying, well, the thing is, Bob, this could have a great impact on your business over the next 12 months. That's not really the right goal currency for me, because we pretty much know what we're doing over the next 12 months. So for you to use the language of the next 12 months, it's the wrong currency. I'll listen to you, but it's not the right goal currency. For example, profit currency. If you said to me, well, if you went ahead with this over a 3-year period, it would halve the cost of some of your processes, it's just not the right profit currency. We would like to halve the cost base of the business over the next 3 years. I suppose we would, but the real currency we're interested in is doubling the amount of sales. It's the wrong currency. If you want to talk to me about emerging technology to halve the cost base, when I'm in the middle of trying to work out how to double the sales revenue, we're not talking the right currency. The right proposition currency. You might say, well, this proposition will make you a market leader. That's our proposition. If you engage with this technology, you will be the market leader. Well, that's not something we're looking to do. In the sector that we're in, being the market leader, it won't help. It's not how the businesses in our sector invest money. They don't work like that. They partner with people that they've heard of or they've experienced, and phrases like market leader, leading brand, it doesn't help. So look across the bottom, you've got these different headings. The right power currency could be power. Power's sort of slightly different now. We've had the coronavirus. It might be, you say, well, our technology or this idea will enable you to do things more quickly. That's the power that our technology, our idea will give you. You can do things more quickly. That's the wrong power. I'd be more interested in if you could help me do things more accurately. Just think about how these work. I mean, this is, as Sadia knows, this is a relatively short introduction to how to sell innovative ideas, but that's the first thing. Personnel is quite straightforward. We had the meeting where we didn't get the personnel right because we didn't know there was going to be someone in the meeting asking immensely technical questions around algorithms. I mean, I'm thinking, well, Lord, you know, it's our first meeting and you're asking us like that level of detail. I mean, it's a buying signal, Sadia, but it didn't help us. Okay, I'm watching the time, Sadia. So let's have a look at another one. The base. So let's go back. So are you at a position to even talk about innovation and new and emerging technology? Is the relationship consistent with you talking about something brand new? You know, for example, I always think that if you're trying to sell something brand new from a cold call, well, good luck with that. A cold call is not the relationship base to show something brand new. It just isn't. What's the constraint base? Some people this year will not be investing into brand new things. They just won't. They are going to be waiting until the economy seems a bit more clear. And it doesn't matter how compelling that you are, or the product, or the opportunity to engage with you, they are constrained. Knowledge base. Can you be sure that the person that you're talking to is going to understand what it is that you're talking about? I recently, 6 weeks ago, spoke to somebody who was a senior person in a big London-based legal firm. And they actually asked me how secure the cloud is. How secure is the cloud? Now, they're entitled to ask that question. I mean, he's not an IT lead, but when you're selling technology and someone's saying to you, how secure is the cloud, you're probably not talking to the right person, because their grasp of technology just isn't sufficient to embrace or engage with what you're talking about, any more than if he was talking to me about litigation processes in the lockdown. I don't know. Personnel are the people that you're talking to, working with. Are they the right people to make that kind of decision? So you need to think about that. And then we'll go to the next one. I'm still on it, Sadia. I know what I got to do. Assessment. So you have to think about, when people are buying something that's brand new, brand new, how do they assess things? So how do they assess time? How do they use time? So are people looking for something to work really well in a 3-month window, or is it 6 months or 12 months? Are they looking for return on investment within a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 weeks? Start thinking about time. How are they likely to measure time? Because when people engage with unproven technology, brand new innovative ideas, it's harder to get people to value time. One of the challenges that we have with time is to sell to people, if you invest a lot of time in this now, you will get a major payback within 12 months. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to get people to think like that. And the time assessment's probably the biggest barrier that we have to our technology, which is brand new and award-winning. It's time. There are some people that just cannot think like that. The risk, how do people assess risk? You'll find that people will rarely invest in things that they think there's a risk attached to. And, you know, there's a risk of going ahead with something, but there's also a risk of not being innovative. And I think most sales models that I'm looking at is, how do you communicate the risk of not being innovative in this exceptionally innovative commercial environment? So that's one of the major sales arguments we put out there. Can you risk not being innovative in the most innovative period that this economy has probably ever known? It's almost like a new industrial revolution, a mixture of home-based working, office-based working, the way people are interacting with each other, how people value things, how people behave. It's a terrific opportunity, but it isn't if you're just going to go into it just doing the same things you were before. So we talk like that. It doesn't always land, because, you know, I'm having that argument with people wearing their De Bono black hat. So it's all, you know, it's all very well you saying that, Bob, but offset is how people trade things. So even a clean shave costs a beard. So you need to think about offset. So when we're selling technology, the offset is a lot of grief now for a lot of benefit in 12 months' time. That's the offset. It also falls under time. So I'm going straight into the next level, positioning. Positioning, when you're talking to people. If the technology is new or the thinking is new, just how credibility is it? What can you do to position your credibility? Like, for example, I'm thinking actually of something pretty recent in C40i. We were able to position a business as being more credible. And we did it through 2 testimonials from people that hadn't bought the technology, but were able to vouchsafe it. And that added credibility to something where it's going to be pretty difficult for them to break into the market. We had another product that was a health product, and we couldn't make the product more credible because it was new to market, but there was credibility around the problem it was solving. So you got to try and be clever with credibility. You know, how can we create some credibility? It's got to be real credibility. You can't invent stuff like, you know, let's say that I don't know, we do something for somebody. You can't. It's got to be real stuff. So you can either position yourself about credibility, that the problem is highly credible, the benefit case is highly credible, the people you're working with are highly credible, you're highly credible, the marketplace is highly credible. If you've got a case study, that's better. If you've got investors, that helps. We've got investors, and they make us more credible, because anyone that understands who's invested into us knows that the amount of due diligence they would have done is considerable. So by default, we must be credible. So look at that. The power of association is an interesting one. You can do it like this. You could say, well, and I'll show you how we do it. Here's 4 or 5 articles around the business development challenge that lawyers face. This one's in Forbes. This one's in the Law Society Journal. This was published by the Bar Association in London. This was published by this organization. This was published by that organization. So you can, by association, position yourself by looking at information in the marketplace that says you're credible, and then associate yourself with that information. So that's association positioning. Decoy positioning, that's to do with, mostly it's around if you can find competitors of theirs that have adopted similar technology, similar thinking, similar behavior, dealing with the same risks, by decoy, that also positions you, because you're positioning yourself through the behavior of a competitor. So it's really a decoy, but it still works. Across here, the 2 really big ones are fact finding. And you've got to, when you're selling innovation, spend a lot more time trying to understand what they worry about most of all. I would be focusing on what they worry about most of all, rather than what benefits excite them the most. So almost the sales model's turned inside out, because normally we're always looking for what's the what benefits are they looking for? What are the benefits they're looking for? You could spend 20 minutes trying to understand the benefits that they're looking for. You could do that. Yes, you could do that. And that's cool if that will definitely get the deal over the line. I can tell you what will definitely stop the deal happening: what they worry about. So I would focus on what they worry about. When you make a decision like this, what are your biggest considerations? When you make a decision like this, what kind of framework of reflection are you using? what kind of benefit case would need to exist for you to be able to engage with this thinking, this product, this offer. It's got to be very direct. You really need to find out what they worry about. And I found myself that during this coronavirus pandemic, I've been saying these are very strange times to be making a decision around technology. It's very strange times. It's very strange times. It's very hard to make the right decision. So I give you the right information for you and your team to reflect. So I give you the right information so you and your team reflect. What would be the biggest concerns that you have regarding the draft proposal, so that I can equip you for your reflection on what our offer means to those concerns. And I don't think anyone's kicked back, because most people are looking for some kind of help on how they can make a decision. Now, I'm not saying if you do that, that means that people say, oh, well, let me tell you this, let me tell you that, oh, we'll go ahead with this, because that's not true either. That doesn't happen. But you'll find that people will share information because it's in their interest to share information, and it gives you a better chance of addressing what they're worrying about. So the new sales model is to address worries, not to sell benefits. Okay, address worries, not sell benefits. The menu at the top is pretty straightforward. It's when you're selling something that's brand new, what are the additional things that you can put into the deal? Now, I don't know what they are. The things that we've been doing, I mean, I don't know what they are because I don't know what you're doing. I do know what we do. We've put in different things like we've improved our onboarding process. So we guarantee a one-to-one onboarding process, and within the fee, we guarantee that anyone that doesn't succeed in the first onboarding process, we've got one-to-one capacity. Now, people are using that one-to-one capacity, and it is expensive, but it's not damaged the business model. So you need to think about what additional things do you need to offer to get this innovation over the line. What do you need to offer? Inductions and onboarding, that appears to be a very hot button if you're selling technology that people need to use. It could be you offer a specific type of help desk. It could be you guarantee there's no version changes for the first 6 months as part of the deal, because quite often with new technology, it's changing all the time. I mean, those of us that have been using Zoom, man, I don't know how many times that there's been a new version of Zoom, and I'm not convinced that everyone's enjoying all these different changes. So you need to think about what can you put into your sales presentation to give them more comfort that you will produce more results. Because if they've got an established offer, which is A, and your unestablished innovation, which is B, you've got to give them additional things for them to forgo A. And you need to work out what it is. I think it's mostly time. Induction, onboarding, help desk, user manuals, that kind of thing. Maybe even pilot terms. We've done that as well. So for the first 3 months of the technology, we can't give it away. We can't do that. What we can do is say, okay, for the first 3 months, it looks like this. If that works, then the discount that we've given you, we will recover that discount over the next 9 months, because, you know, we've got a charging structure. We can't just give that away, but we only can recover that discount if you're happy. And that seems to work. Of course, I don't know, of all the people that are going to watch the recording and all the people that are on this, I don't know what it is that you're doing, but you'd need to think about what kind of concessions could I add. And what I'm going to do, Sadi, is just move this on. So just bear with me a second, everybody. Okay. And I would think to do this actually. Now, you may not be too cool about this, but I'm part of Center for Digital Innovation, and it's kind of pretty down with the kids. A lot of millennials in there, and it's great. There's some great people in there, that's for sure. But I'm always trying to say to somebody, "Can you have a look at this? What do you think? What do you reckon?" And I can't name the company. It's a very big company in Hull. I'm very thankful to their innovation lead, because I've been showing her things, and she's a great critic. She's a great critic, just a great critic from the technology point of view. You know, she's saying, well, this is the kind of barrier you'd have if you were talking to us. I mean, they're not a legal firm, but it's just great. Find somebody you can demo what this sales argument looks like, who's educated enough to give you the pitfalls of what you're saying. Because what you're going to have to do is create an environment where people are interested. And the way to get people's interest is to be relevant. But what kind of happens with new technology, it's harder to do it because you have to share so much information. And as we saw earlier, people get information overload. So what I do is I book time with this lady and say, does this make sense? What do you not like about this? What do you not like about this visual? When we're explaining our technology like this, what don't you like about it? What would your procurement guy say to this argument? It's not a legal firm. It's a completely different business, but I think you're better off testing stuff with somebody, especially through Zoom. You know, you say to someone, have you got 45 minutes? I'd like your opinion. Try and share it with people who are likely to tell you what they reckon. I mean, you know, I don't show it to my mum. You know, she always thinks everything I come up with is great. That won't help. So you need to share it with somebody who is absolutely professional enough to respond. And you've got to be professional enough to buy into. They're not raining on your parade. They're trying to help you. So let's go into this. You've got this other hierarchy. So let's go back to it. Look at that. Whoa. Look at that, Sadia. Look at that for slides, the way they morph. No expense spared, Sadia. These are really good slides. So when you forward them out, everybody, do not misuse these slides. So this is how generally you need to think in terms of whatever method you're going to use to make a sale. How can you get the other person to trust what it is that you're saying? Just think about that. The second is the hierarchy that you're dealing with, what is the entry point you're at? And it works in different ways. Like I shared with you that I spoke to the managing partner of a very large practice who took the trouble to ask me how secure the cloud was. Now, that was the right part of the hierarchy in terms of it was the top person, but it wasn't the right person in the hierarchy who could understand the technology. So you need to be thinking about whereabouts should this, you know, which part of this ecosystem should this be entering? Should it be the end user? Should it be procurement? Should it be operations? I mean, again, I don't know exactly what it is that you're doing, but you need to think about whereabouts. You know the story, the Goldilocks and the three bears. You know, there was a little bear, and a medium bear, and a daddy bear, and Goldilocks had to find which bed fit her and which food fit her. Well, you've got to kind of do that yourself. A bit of a Goldilocks and the three bears. Where should you be? Where should you be playing? Communication. We've covered that. You absolutely need to be using visuals. I think when it comes to innovation, it would be inappropriate, Sadia, for me to name anyone in C40i, but I think everyone on this call, there are people that specialize in putting slide decks together. And I really think it's worth a bit of investment to engage someone that's really cool at getting visual arguments across. One of the biggest successes that we've had is somebody came up with 2 digital images that we couldn't have come up with ourselves because it's not what we do. And it completely altered the way that we were communicating our innovation. So I think it's worth your while to find somebody who is very adept at digital marketing, the use of visuals, and tell them, look, this is what I'm trying to communicate. This is what the innovation opportunity looks like. How would you communicate that using visuals? Decision making, you need to invest in how does this company decide when they're spending money on something new. Now, the very first slide was the worry cycle. Okay, so if you're watching the recording, the very first slide was the worry cycle. So the decision-making process is going to be like that. I've already touched on how do people measure time. I've already touched on that. People see it in different ways. Persuasion. You need to find what are the arguments that are really going to make the difference here. And I shared the biggest one earlier. There is a risk of engaging with new and emerging technology. Yeah, there's a risk, but I'd say there's a bigger risk for waiting to see what happens. I think there's a far bigger risk. So, but you need to find, well, what are the arguments that are going to sit right? And you've got to develop arguments that sit with new and emerging technology, not just the benefit case. And that's the sales model. Yeah, you know all this though. What is the benefit case of this innovation? What is it? That's what people buy. Now, just to show you, our last slide, Sadia, and I think I am bang on time. I know you're going to find that incredible, but sometimes I just manage to be so on time it's untrue. What you've got here is to think about who can buy from you. And you've got 4 different areas. You've got one area where there's no point in talking, which it says stop. One area where it's kind of speculative, really. Another area to examine. Another area which is green for go. Now, if you look at the axis on the bottom is low to high, which says it's possible. And the other axis is low to high, which says it's profitable. So you've got stuff that's low in possibility but high in profit, so you speculate. Then you've got stuff that's high in possibility but low in profit, and you examine. So you've got different things there. And you might think, well, okay, how did my innovation look before the pandemic? So it could be which type of clients, what kind of geographic area, what kind of offer. Then you've got how does my innovation look during the pandemic, and you'll find that things have moved around. So I'll give you an example. I used to offer consultancy around improving webcam meetings, okay? For international companies, how to improve webcam meetings. And I did used to bring it up with the London clients. I did used to do that. But people used to say, well, you know, so what? When the pandemic started, that became the biggest thing that people were interested in, you know, how to have more effective meetings. So these are moving around. And then you've got, well, how do these look now the pandemic is starting to dissipate? So you need to think about those 3 different environments and what that means to what you offer. And there's some different ideas there on how to think that through. So it's great. So many of you are on the call, and fantastic to be here with Winning Moves again. So what we've got here is this fantastic support. Now do follow this and do give this some thought. Survive, revive, and thrive. So in the first instance, this is how digital catalysts can help. And I've already been speaking about the importance of getting visualization into your sales process And there's an example there. We review, we analyze, we define and implement. And these are proven experts. And that's how it looks. Technology provider, financial support where that's appropriate, a plan, and the whole process, expert support through the entire process. So we identify which technologies will add to your business. We work out which options offer the best value. We completely understand the knock-on changes. And we've got the skill and expertise to identify how different technologies integrate. And there's the key thing there. It's a proven team around implementation. Look at all those different things. And there's a lot more than that. So if I was you, I'd have a real long, hard look at this, because you don't know what you don't know. And this is all so key now. We're moving out of the coronavirus. So key. And there's support there. Grants and funding. The benefit case for doing this is considerable. And I think as well, the argument for being cyber safe right now has never been stronger. And there we go. That's a whole phone number, and you've got the email account there. And look at that. Have a look at the website. Take a look at the website. I think you'd be very surprised the amount of quality support that's available. And you don't know what you don't know. So jump onto that website, have a look. You'll get these slides, so you'll be able to see it and have a look. And what have you got to lose? Just drop an email and then grab a Zoom meeting. And there we go. Register. Now, currently, Digital Catalyst is got a waiting list, but apply and register, because that waiting list there'll soon be a new one. So I think I've understood that correctly, Sadia. So people should be looking to register now, and I'd absolutely advise that you do.